In the world of fist truck videos, yes, I am unfortunately speaking in the third person for just a moment. This video is already pretty goddamn long, so I'm just gonna cut to the chase here and say, welcome everyone, my name is Fist Truck, and today I'm gonna show you how to magic, as long as magic means mostly melee magic, in Elden Ring. And also, if you happen to be completely new to the game and have somehow found your way down this deep of the rabbit hole of the internet, first, welcome. Second, watch up to step 3 if you want a mostly spoiler-free experience. Any point after that, you've been warned. Lastly, the most magical thing that you could do is to whisk your finger over to that subscribe button and possibly check out my second channel, Fist Truck TV. Videos go up sometimes. So before I go over how to magic, first I'm going to tell you how to magic, but for beginners, because you never know, new people play this game all the time. So first, you need a staff, and you need spells. They each have their own intelligence requirements. Yes, you have to meet both of them. Second, the amount of spells you can have ready at one time is determined by the amount of memory slots you have, which is determined by the amount of memory stones you have. Those you find while playing the game. And lastly, the amount of times they can cast a spell is determined by your blue bar. Your blue bar is the bar that's blue, aka the blue bar. And let's end with explaining how your stats affect the way you cast spells. Intelligence, the bigger the brain, the bigger the damage, and the more shit you have access to. Mind gives you a bigger blue bar. Bigger blue bar means you can cast more spells without having to drink a blue flask. Blue flask can suck my dick. And lastly, dexterity. Ignore everything I'm about to say. Pretend I never said dexterity, because this shit's kind of useless, at least on the first playthrough. The more dexterity you have, the faster you cast spells. However, the amount of points you gotta put into dexterity to get any benefits is fucking stupid and pointless, at least on the first playthrough. When you have like fuck you levels, then I understand, but in this case, fuck that. Now with that questionable crash course out of the way, let's get into the build. Also, super quick disclaimer for the builds. I'm a melee player through and through, so this magic build is a melee build, but they have melee spells, and they're really cool, and they work, so it makes for a pretty bitchin' build, and that's the build I'm going to talk about. However, there's a second build later on that's primarily range stuff. It's a smaller thing since range really isn't my cup of tea. I don't get as in-depth with it as I do with the first build. However, I did play with it and test it enough to say, hey, it's pretty sick, and it definitely kicks ass. Now with that out of the way, step 1, time to create a character. We're picking the astrologer as our starting class because, like, bruh, obviously, no shit, it's the fucking intelligence class. We're picking that one. We're trying to magic, it magics, we magic, it works. Since I'm sticking to smacking shit as a mage, I named my character Mandolph, and then really tried to make him look like Gandalf, which didn't work out. But he's got muscles. Step 2, time to kick this bitch off by getting the Royal House Scroll. And being in a very predictable location, the Royal House Scroll happens to be outside next to this one random dude who's pelting shit at you. After getting that, go to the very conveniently closed waypoint ruins and then fight the Pumpkinhead boss. One of my friends was telling me that they recently started Elden Ring and they got griefed on this boss. Being my friend, I inherently gave him a bunch of shit, and if you're watching this, you know who you are. However, if you, the viewer, aside from my friend, happens to be having trouble in this boss, I believe in you, you can get it done. Step 3, I have a massive desire to magically cut ass, just so I can pretend that I'm actually funny. After pelting the Pumpkinhead guy with a shit ton of pop rocks, lift open this thing, door, shutter, whatever it may be. Speak to Sorcerer's Cell and give her the Royal House Scroll. Buy Carian Slicer. This is literally the best fucking spell in the game. It costs like nothing to cast, it comes out incredibly quickly, it does a shit ton of damage as long as your character's smart enough to know how to wipe their own ass. Also, I just think it's pretty badass that it fills that whole Battlemage thing. I never quite liked with every single caster class, all you would do is just like pew pew pew. That's just not exciting for me. Step 4, time to get to the land of the nerds, which may or may not mean that you gotta fight your way through the castle who's occupied by a literal dipshit. After adding like 300 arms to his body, his greatest plan of attack is to chop them off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, I am purposefully omitting the section where he replaces it with a dragon, and somehow that works. Step 5, now that we are in the land of the nerds, I can't help but notice a distinct lack of sex going on in Mandolph's life at the moment, which means we must associate ourselves with those who fuck, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, or at least I really hope you do, otherwise it's really fucking awkward right now. We'll be getting the Carian Greatsword off of the Pope Turtle, aka this is gonna run you 10,000 Eldens. I also currently realized that I forgot to say how many Eldens that the Carian Slicer costs. And I'm not gonna look it up right now, so that one also costs Eldens. You're gonna need 24 in brain in order to cast this, and just in case you happen to not have a third memory slot at the moment, just hold tight because we'll get one pretty soon. Step 6, either starting from the Church of King Fuck or one of the bonfires that are nearby, gallop your way over to the Carian Study Hall. I cannot tell you how long I waited to do this step because I thought I needed a certain object to flip the Carian Study hole upside down, and it turns out I didn't need it. I'm a fucking dumbass. You don't need it. Unfortunately, while we're here, we're gonna have to contest with a PvP player who does nothing but spam range attacks at you the whole time and then tell you that they're nice at the game. To be honest, I just ignored this guy because once I found out that I didn't need the hourglass, I was genuinely fed up, so I just kind of skipped everything. Just climb all the way to the top of the stairs, grab the Carian glintstone staff, and then see yourself into the afterlife, because that's what I did. We're getting the staff because it offers a fat 15% buff to the melee spells that we'll be casting. And after doing some testing myself, and then also just reading the wiki, for as much intelligence as we'll have during this playthrough, this staff is going to do the most damage with the spells that we're going to cast. Step 7, time to go to the Palace of the Nerds. We got some shit to get here, and I'm just going to kind of lump it all into one step. So first, we're going to be getting the Graven School Talisman, which is right before the Wolf Fog Gate. There's an invisible wall, karate roll, go through it, you'll find it eventually. Then afterwards, smack the shit out of Balto and tell him to stay in his place, which is Cinema. After defeating the wolf, step outside, stick to the right, drop down here, climb a ladder, and get the Radagon icon. It speeds up the casting of spells, and honestly, I think it's copium, but I also think it works, so I'm telling you to get it because I used it. Lastly, while we're here, and we're gonna need this for the future, kick the shit out of Renala. Except don't find out when you get into the room that, unsurprisingly, the magic boss is incredibly fucking resistant to magic. I hit her once, I was like, nah, bro, we're not doing this. And I let a chandelier kick the shit out of me. We'll be back later. Step 8, it is time for Simp. We're going over to the Carian Manor, fight your way through the whole place, and then swear allegiance to this goddamn she-devil. I'd like to think that Mandolf is strong and independent. However, sometimes it's just best to put your pride to the side. Nonetheless, at this current moment, we're trying to appease this absolute fucking moron over here. Speak to him, he gives you a potion to give to another NPC, and unfortunately, during this playthrough, I did anything but talk to NPCs. So with that being said, go back to the round table hold, grant Gideon the ability to leave his starting position after you're already over halfway through the game, hand him the potion, and that's about all we need. Go back to the Carian Manor, speak to Celavis, and buy the Glintstone Ice Crack spell off of him for 7,500 Eldens. Why this spell in particular? Frostbite just kind of fucks, the damage is pretty decent, and we'll be getting the Snow Witch hat in the future. I know, spoiler alert, so the damage will be even more decent. I also know I previously said that this is primarily going to be a melee build, but there are some moments in the game where they just kind of stop giving a shit, so at that point you gotta fight fire with fire, or in this case ice with whatever shit they're throwing at you. Step 9, just get through a shit ton of the game, but don't activate the big bowl. Or you probably could, but I'm just gonna say play it safe. I don't really verify that, but a lot of things in this game kind of cut off once you activate the bowl. Step 10, time to simp, but even harder this time. Now we gotta start doing Ronnie's questline, which involves a whole lot of shit that we've been ignoring for the most part, unless you played your game in a much more natural way than I did. So first you wanna go over to New Jersey and slay Redaniel. After defeating him, a big hole opens up in the ground that was surprisingly very hard to find, at least for me, when this game launched. And I guess it wasn't just me, because they put a fucking marker on it with an update. Nonetheless, continue through that area and then get that blade thing that Ronnie wants. Go back to the manor, give her the blade, chill at a bonfire, wait for her to leave, then go to Redna's Rise and open up a chest that gives us all the Snow Witch shit. In this case, we just need the hat, because it's the same hat that Gandalf wore. Also, I just want to take a quick moment to point out that I've never seen all Lord of the Rings movies. I've seen the first two, and that's it. So I guess I'm a poser. Nonetheless, put the hat on and increase his ice damage by 10%. That's going to come in handy for 2 spells. One we already have and one we'll get later. I wish that were the end of the step, but it's not. Proceed to do all of Ronnie's questline, which is cool, but I think I've done it so much at this point that I'm losing my fucking mind. Get the doll, speak to the doll, then get to another bonfire, then speak to the doll, then slay the good boy, then go through the swamp of absolute fucking diarrhea, and then go to the land of missed opportunity. I'm never gonna drop that. Then go and fight the boss that I thought was super cool and unique until I found him again. Now I know that was a lot of stuff, but that pales in comparison to what the next step is gonna ask of us. Step 11, we have to fight fucking Renala, man. This sucks. This sucks. This sucks so much ass. Okay. This is totally a me thing. I know this is my fault, but like I said, it was a magic playthrough, so I'm gonna keep it a magic playthrough. And I've only resigned to using these 3 fucking spells. So I went and upgraded the ever-living shit out of my staff at least as much as I could up to this point. Went back to Renala, and I was still hitting her for fucking Cocoa Pebbles, man. It took so long to kill her. Don't do this. Have a brain. Use a sword. Use literally anything else. Or just use magic that doesn't do straight up magic damage. Throw rocks at her or something. That'll work way fucking better. Not this. This sucks. Step 12. After engaging in what I would consider literal fucking garbage, it's time to engage in literal fucking garbage again. Now, after we defeated Ronaldo, open up the chest in a room, grab that thing, go back to where we fought that totally unique boss, proceed past that point, then take the big elevator up. After fighting one incredibly resistant to magic boss, it's time to fight another incredibly resistant to magic boss. Unfortunately, we have to fight this dragon, Adula, who wants to stop us? I don't get it. Like, isn't Adula Ronnie's dragon? Why are you trying to stop us? Like, are you gonna try and take the thing and give it to Ronnie? You can't, she's down a hole, you can't even fucking fit. Also, is you trying to fuck a dragon? I don't follow it. Now, I'm gonna say, I don't keep up with Elden Ring lore like that, so I could be totally ignorant in this case, but to me, it seems like a total fucking contrivance. Anyway, fight the stupid-ass dragon and get the spell off her. This spell is fucking broken, man. It's so good. Replace Carian Greatsword with this thing. It does a shit ton of damage, and every hit of it counts for like 2 hits if you get it up close. It's crazy fucking good. Step 13. I wish that was the end of this quest line, because I swear after killing that dumbass dragon, I'd leave it there. However, we gotta settle. Put a ring on Ronnie and then go back to Ronnie's Rise and slay the good boy, but IRL this time. Or at least in-game IRL. Not IRL, please. After kicking his ass, make sure you put on the armor. Now, it's at this point that I typically leave stats for later in the video. However, there's a very good chance that if you try equipping this stuff, you're gonna have fat rolls. So I believe in order to have this stuff on, you need to have at least 12 endurance, which really ain't all that much. And also, why this armor? No reason in particular. It's just a Battlemage build. I think it looks pretty badass, and considering you went through all this trouble to do all of Ronnie's questline, I mean, like, you might as well just do that one other thing. Step 14. Time to go to the fucking consecrated snowfield, because there's so much good shit there. Anyway, we're getting the Graven Mass Talisman from the Albinoric Rise. But wait, it's not that simple. We now have to go back to the Palace of the Nerds, then go all the way down here to this one random merchant who's in a spot where he clearly doesn't want anything to buy shit from him, and then buy the Fanged Imp ashes off of him. Now with these ashes, we go back to the Albinoric Rise, and then summon them, and then kill another one of these goblin men or imp men that show up while one of your boys are out. You could also use that one item that makes enemies fight other enemies, and I feel like it's unreliable, so I don't do it. Anywho, after we successfully use our brain to go on Google and find the solution to this puzzle, go up the Rise and get the Graven Mass Talisman, which conveniently stacks with the Graven School Talisman, and in total gives us a 12% buff to magic damage, which leaves us with one more talisman slot. Step 15, we're going to that fucking tree. Get through the town of Call of Duty. Skip stuff. Duck on Loretta. Skip stuff. Get to the ceiling of this one building and drop down through this hole over here. Ignore the Centipede Man and get the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. It just gives us a shit ton of defense. I can't find anything that's better than this, at least in my particular instance. I tried a couple other talismans, primarily the Primal Glintstone Blade. However, it really didn't do it for me. However, feel free to replace this one with something you might actually prefer. Step 16, time to end this shit. Get back to the bowl, sacrifice the life of what's-her-face, continue onwards, and get griefed by the goddamn Elden Beast. I swear it's like it just knows when I want to beat the game. Nonetheless, kick its ass. And with that, we're left with an important choice. But there's really only one choice we got. Mandolf stands alone today, eat shit! Hell yeah, masturbation! Time to talk about stats. As per usual, this is based on being level 120, and also how I kind of prefer to play the game, so adjust accordingly. So first, we'll be starting with Vigor at 50. Can't really say much about that. Health is cool. Then we're getting Mind to 30. So this one I spent a bit of time on trying to figure out what the right amount was, because I kind of wanted to go into things without having too many of the blue flasks. So for the vast majority of the game, considering how cheap Carian Slicer is, I usually only had about 2 or 3 of the blue flasks at a time, and I almost never use them all, except for fucking Renala. Next is Endurance, which will be at 12. This is solely just to equip the armor. Otherwise, pretty much most of the spells cost like no stamina to use, so it really don't matter that much. And if you use different armor, then also, once again, adjust accordingly. And lastly, I just dumped everything else into Intelligence. We're going big brain in this one. So by the end of the game, that kind of brought my Intelligence up to 71. Random number, I know, but that's pretty much what was just left over at that point. Now it's time to talk about how you're going to want to play this build, and unsurprisingly, you're just going to want to hit shit. Carian Slicer costs like practically nothing, uses no stamina, and by the end of the game, even to be honest, the moment you get it, does an absolute fuck ton of damage relative to those previous things that I mentioned. I just want to take a moment to appreciate that using Carian Slicer just takes your staff and makes it work like pretty much a straight sword. At least insofar that if you're trying to just R1 spam, your character doesn't stand there and recast the thing every single time. And also you have a rolling R1 as well, which is pretty cool. And on the honestly very rare occasion that you get something to actually stagger, then feel free to use Carian Greatsword or Adula's Moonblade, depending on how far you are into the game. If you're fighting a boss like Millennia, you, it's probably better to just rely on using a Duela's Moonblade because you usually only get time to do like one attack, and it comes out fast enough and hits insanely fucking hard enough, especially once you factor the frostbite into the whole thing, that you'll kick a surprising amount of ass with this build. Otherwise, on the rare occasion where the game is just trying to be cheesy as fuck, just use Glintstone Ice Crack. Like, I point to this one boss fight where they thought it'd be cool to have you fight 2 wooden asylum demons at the same time. Like, that's fun. Or sometimes you have bosses that just keep staying out of range, or enemies that just keep fucking with you, and you're like, bruh, fuck this shit, man. Yo, here's some ice cubes. Alright, now time for a ranged build. Now, I know at the beginning of the video, I said I was just gonna smack the shit out of things with magic. However, 99% of the way through making this video, I was like, you know what? I feel like I should just still have a small build tacked to the end of this where you get to shoot things. And after doing just a wee bit of testing with the build, it works out really, really well. However, one little bit of caveat for this one is that I think it works best when you're really, really high level. In this case, I was like level 182 on New Game Plus 2 or 3. First, for the weapon, we'll be using the Renala staff, which I think is called the Carian Regal Scepter. This thing works really, really fucking well when you have a big-ass brain, which once again, being really, really high level, my brain was as big as brain could be. Moving on for that, we're still using the Ronnie hat because it smells of woman. And also, because of the damage buffs it gives, we're still using them. Next, for the rest of the getup, look as dumb as humanly fucking possible because you need the heaviest armor possible because once we start getting into higher New Game Plus cycles, like, you just kind of die otherwise. And to be honest, you also die while wearing this shit too. Alright, now on to the talisman. First, we're going to start with the magic scorpion charm. And this fucking thing almost made me quit on this build just because when I was doing the playthrough for the first build, I kind of didn't finish this dickhead's questline. And you kind of need to progress it just a bit more past the point where I did in order to get this goddamn thing. Nonetheless, it increases our damage by 12%. We also take 10% more damage alongside that. Rest of the talismans are going to be the same shit as the other build. You want the 2 Graven School and Graven Mass talismans, and you want the Radagon icon. This time, it's not copium. Things actually come out faster. This next bit I talked about briefly towards the end of the first build. However, just to reiterate this time, we're actually going to be using the Physic, which is something I almost never fucking do, but nonetheless, you want to put the Magic Shrouding Crack tier and the Cerulean Hidden tier in this thing. The Magic tier gives us a shit ton of damage for 3 minutes, which for most boss fights, they won't live that long. And the Cerulean tier gives us infinite FP for about 15 seconds, which may or may not come in handy for a spell that I'm sure everyone can already see coming. Speaking of spells, first we're starting with Glintstone Pebble. This shit just works. It's like the Carian Slicer, but with bullets. It's mega cheap, it does really good damage, and it also comes out incredibly quickly. Like, this is probably what you're going to be using most of the time. Magic Glint Blade. Conveniently enough, this spell also gets a 10% damage buff with the staff that we're using, but I really don't care about that. Really, what I care about is the fact that it counters the absolute fucking dickheads that just read your controller inputs. You probably know the ones I'm talking about. It's usually like NPCs or NPC-like bosses that the moment you cast a spell, they just automatically go for a dodge or just start bum rushing your ass. This thing just totally breaks their programming. The moment you cast it, they do their dodge or they start charging you, but the spell doesn't actually attack them the moment you cast it. It waits a moment and then it goes at them, and they will never dodge it. They don't know how to react to it. It breaks them. Next is the Glintstone Ice Crack again, because once again, it hits crazy fucking hard and also works really well when you only have small windows of attack. Like if you dodge and you only have enough time to cast one spell, you make sure that one spell counts. Next, once again, is the Duelist Moonblade. Listen, man, the numbers don't lie. The thing fucking smacks. Look at this boss just get absolutely fucking juiced by this thing. Speaking of juicing things, we have our last spell. The dumbest, most stupid-ass spell, but it's undeniably satisfying when you could just, like, Goku for a little bit. By that, I mean we're getting Comet Azure. This is the most unga-bunga magic spell that there is, because all you do is just stand in place until something smacks you, or you run out of MP, or they die first. That's it. For a lot of bosses, this is probably going to be an opener, assuming that boss doesn't just immediately charge your ass the moment you walk through the fog gate or it shows up. And this spell is really funny, but the fun factor of it, not the funny factor, two different things, kind of wears off for me after a little bit because I kind of like getting into the whole, you know, dodging, countering kind of stuff with this game. And going and starting every single boss fight just going like, kind of gets old after a bit for me. But it's satisfying. It's definitely satisfying. I'm not going to say it's not satisfying. It's just not satisfying for long to me. How you're going to want to play this build, just kind of flick pebbles at things unless they happen to dodge your attacks and flick glint blades at them. If you happen to be fighting something a bit more durable, then you might want to switch to the ice spells. And when you start a boss fight, like I said, just chug the physic and just fucking blast that bitch at them. You're going to get hit. It's fine. You're wearing fat boy armor. You'll be all right. Just a couple things about this video to close it off with. First, you may have noticed a turtle shell on Mandal's back for a good portion of the video. At first, I thought I was going to use it, but then I didn't. Feel free to use it. Don't. It's your game. Second, this is pretty much also the faith video. I made a video in the past, a small joke one called How to Faith or How to Jesus Christ or something like that. I'll put it in the description. The thumbnail had buff Jesus flexing off the cross if you try looking for it on your own. In that video, it's just pretty much going over how you could kick ass with faith in the beginning of the game, and it just pretty much revolves around you using Catch Flame and buffing the ever-living shit out of it. It turns out that works for the whole game. I did a whole playthrough of using nothing but Catch Flame because it works. It comes out really fast. It's just Carian Slicer, but fire from your hands. And I feel like if I did a whole video about that, it'd be kind of redundant. So there's my faith video. And lastly, I know the range build at the end was a little bit of its own thing. However, I didn't want to just completely ignore the people that were potentially looking for a ranged build. Even though it's not particularly my cup of tea, I still had fun with it, but I also don't want people to feel neglected, especially when you can have fun with it. And for what it's worth, like I previously said, the build definitely kicks ass. It definitely works really well. All right, that about wraps things up for this video. I know it was a long one, so I'll do my typical thing. If you made it to the end of the video, type pie in the comments. I don't think I've said that one yet. Once again, I've been Fist Truck. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, or don't, do whatever you want. And until next time, don't forget to always wipe before you shit.